Welcome to the Whiskey and Wisdom Podcast, coming to you from the Cargo District Recording Studios in Wilmington, North Carolina, where we discuss the most fascinating topics of life. I'm Tyler Yaw with my co-host, Chris Kellum, and each week we interview a special guest to learn how they acquired their wisdom over a glass of whiskey. So, sit back, pour yourself a glass, and enjoy Whiskey and Wisdom.
Welcome back to the Whiskey and Wisdom Podcast. I am Tyler Yaw, and we're switching up a little bit today. Chris, our typical co-host here, is gallivanting New York City. So I have brought on our regular guest, Palmer Grigsby.
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for filling in. And our special guest for today is John Salter.
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. And since Palmer decided he doesn't want to drink anymore, and and John Salter, just like most of the best mixed martial artists that I know, abstain from alcohol because it's not good for your body. We are going to do water and wisdom today, which is never a bad thing either. So before we get into too much of the questions, John, tell everyone about you.
I'm a professional fighter. I wrestled my whole life. I was a national champion in college. I got into jiu-jitsu and MMA. When I was in grad school, I started fighting. Went 7-0 as an amateur, so I turned pro, and pretty quick was in the UFC. And I was in the UFC way too fast. I've been training like 2 years. And so I was there for about a year, and then bounced around some other organizations, then got signed to Bellator. And I've been in Bellator for a pretty long while now. Had a good run there, fought for a world title last year in Bellator, and moved to Wilmington in 2015. 2016, started my gym here, so here to stay, and everything's going pretty good now. So we like it here a lot.
Yeah. What brought you here to Wilmington?
So my wife followed me out to California for me to train out there. It was good for us, not something that we were going to do long term. We knew that. And it's kind of funny. It's a God thing. Came back to visit family for Thanksgiving. And we were in the Birmingham airport flying back to California, and my wife broke down crying. She's like, I can't go back to California. I can't do it anymore. Yeah. She's like, I hate it. And but she had a good job out there. I said, well, when you got hired, you told them you give them 2 years. It's been a year. It's like, so let's start looking for options where we want to come back. We want to go back to Nashville. And it's like, so then we'll do that. Well, then Monday morning, her boss called her and was like, we're doing away with your position across the whole company, but we're going to give you a promotion, and we need to move you somewhere. You can go to LA or San Francisco. We're like, neither. Yeah, we're not doing either one of those. So we just said, get us as close to Nashville as you can. And, she can basically stay there until we move to Nashville. And they gave us a couple of options and places that we really didn't know anything about. Wilmington was one. Mm-hmm. And we both wrote Wilmington off immediately. And we had said we'd go the Asheville route because I had friends in Knoxville that trained. That's friends Ovin St. Preux and all the guys that trained there at Knoxville MMA. So I was like, it's a 2-hour drive. Her family's in Knoxville. I was like, I can stay some nights in Knoxville, some nights in Asheville, and I can still train, full time like that. And they said, okay. And then they took the Asheville job out from under her feet. And she was already so set on leaving California. I was like, all right, we'll make Wilmington work. And it's actually been a huge blessing. It's going really well since I've come here. There's a lot of guys in Wilmington that train, but nobody trained together. Right. And that's why I started my gym. I didn't want to start a gym really, but it's like, I got to kind of try to get people to train together. And so that's kind of how my gym started. And now we've had people move in from kind of all over to train here. So it's going really well.
That's really cool. And you have a bunch of good guys coming out of your gym now too that are making it to the UFC and elsewhere. Yeah,
I've got Joe Selecki there who is on a good run in the UFC right now. Mm-hmm. Got Jamie Pickett that's been in the UFC for a while, and several other up and coming amateurs and pros that are going to make a good run.
That's awesome.
It's a small, Wilmington's a very small place to have such a fight. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of guys out of, like you kind of said, there's a lot of guys out of here, and for a smaller town like this is not like a very prevalent. You wouldn't think Wilmington, North Carolina, you'd think like mixed martial arts, but it's very prevalent here.
It's very surprising how many athletes just in general come out of Wilmington, just for all sports. It's a very athlete rich place.
I mean, the GOAT, Michael Jordan.
Yeah. Right.
We can't get a Jumpman statue downtown or anything, but the guy came out of Wilmington. That's nuts.
Yeah, that's crazy to think of. And even right now too, in a county of 250,000 people, there's for active professional fighters and large organizations, not including all the other smaller organizations.
Yeah. Yeah. Typically it's hard to get that kind of environment. Like, so Chris Weidman moved to Charlotte. He lives in South Carolina in Fort Mills, but right outside of Charlotte, right? And we do a lot of training in Charlotte. Kind of my head MMA coach is there and a bunch of my friends are there. And it's funny because Weidman moved from Long Island where he trained up there in a gym that a lot of people have heard of, Ray Longo's gym. And he came into Charlotte and he was like, I've never been in a room with this many good guys my size before.
Oh, wow.
And he was like, this is impressive. And it's just kind of funny, like that it's, places you wouldn't really expect that. And that's how it's built like that.
I found that kind of interesting in the UFC in general is you have these gyms and it's really focused around weight more than anything. So like you'll find a really good gym that's mostly for 145, 155ers, and you'll find this area that has a lot of middleweights and like light heavyweights and stuff. It's interesting how it kind of builds around that.
Yeah, that happens a lot. And then you've got your mega gyms, like you got your, it was Sanford MMA, it's Kill Cliff now. And you got your mega gyms in like the Bay Area of California. But it's so hard because if you're not one of the very top guys there, you just get overlooked. You don't get coaching. You don't get anybody spending time with you, So I think that MMA is becoming more like boxing where you're seeing guys go, okay, I'd rather have a camp of 4 or 5 guys that are going to push me and a coach that spends time with me than I'm going to go pay a mega gym money to train there and nobody ever spends time with me and we just spar and beat each other up. It's somebody that's trained in a gym. There's kind of that environment of we're just going to try and kill each other every day. It's not great for a long term,
right? Yeah,
on your body.
Most certainly. Well, that kind of got me. It's kind of like if you were trained at like Jackson Wink or something. Like a lot of great athletes are there, but like you said, like you're just beating absolute piss at each other, like day in and day out, and then. You have so many people just flocking to that gym, right? And like you could have real potential, but maybe you're not a favorite of, or, like I'm sure there's politics within the fight world, like everything, like everything else. And to have, I don't know, just to have like your own place here and, kind of, because isn't like Wonder Boy in South Carolina as well?
He's in Greenville, I believe.
Okay. So really just the Carolinas, like we're a bunch of fighting dudes around the Carolinas. Like it's really impressive.
Yeah. It's nuts too because a lot of those gyms, the mega gyms especially, you get people that go out there and they do their camp there. So if you live there and you train there full time, like okay, you're here for 8 weeks to get ready for a fight, so I'm going to help you for 8 weeks. But now I got a fight coming up and you take off and leave, And that's kind of how it was in Nashville when I trained there. Was I loved the gym, but we had all these really good fighters that would come in and they've got a 8-week camp going on, and then their fight's over and they disappear for a month and a half. I'm like, I'm trying to get ready for something, and. So I just, I'm not a fan of that environment because it's all give and get nothing back,
Makes sense.
That's a good point. So you said you kind of went to grad school, like kind of taking it back a bit. So when college guy, I think a lot of people in the outside world think MMA fighters are just a bunch of like dumb dudes that like, they're just a bunch of like brawny, like high school education guys that just want to like beat the piss out of each other. So you went to college, you're going through grad school. But what made you kind of realize, like, I'm going to go in this fighting route? Like, I'm going to see where this takes me. Because you're in your late 30s now. So you really went to the MMA route kind of at an early time, like before it like really blew up and got super popular.
Yeah. So when I was in college, my college roommate's from Huntington Beach, California. And he used to always talk about Tito Ortiz.
Yeah.
And, in that wrestling world in Huntington Beach, Tito's, always there everywhere. So he knew Tito and he's always talked about him. So it kind of got me into MMA. And so I knew I wanted to fight, but it was more like I want to do some amateur fights, and had a couple of guys on our team that had done some low level pro fights. Like, okay, I might do that some, but my senior year of college, my senior year eligibility, or the year I graduated was my junior year eligibility wise. So I was planning on coming back and wrestling another year. And 3 guys on my team, we all had kind of the same situation. And 2 of us won nationals that year. Wow. And my coach had told me, like, okay, when this year's over, I'm going to do the same deal for you for grad school. I was like, okay, well, so my kind of plan was I'm going to wrestle through grad school and then I'm going to take the LSAT and go to law school. And after nationals was over, my coach came and like offered me my new scholarship. And in my mind, I was thinking when he said like, okay, it's the same deal. Like I'm going to have the same amount of money left over that has to be covered at the end, which would be almost nothing, or very minimal. And it was, I'm going to offer you the same amount of money, but grad school is more expensive.
Yeah.
And I was like, I just won a national title. Why would I do that?
Right.
So I told him, I was like, I don't want to wrestle anywhere else. So I'm just going to move back home and go to grad school there. And then one of the guys, he ended up going to Oklahoma State, and they gave him a full ride for his grad school year to wrestle there. And then the other one, I don't even know what he ended up doing. But anyway, so we all kind of just went our separate ways, And so that kind of just ended up at University of Alabama, Birmingham in grad school there, and started training in Birmingham that year. That would have been my last year wrestling. And just kind of went from there. It was one of those things. I fought 7 times in the first year and went 7-0. My second, I say as an amateur, my second amateur fight, my guy backed out, and there was a guy who was an undefeated pro on the card. And like, do you want to just fight him? And Alabama didn't have a commission. So I was like, yeah. And the guy had like kind of talked down to me. So I was like, yeah, I want to fight him.
Yeah,
and,
100% now.
So I beat him up pretty bad. And then it was like, it's hard to get fights then. That was kind of dumb. I should have done that. So then I was having to travel. I had to go to Oklahoma for 2 amateur fights, and stuff like that. So then it became one of those things I tell everybody as an amateur, don't travel. And then I'm traveling everywhere to go get fights, So, but so that's kind of how it started. And then it just kind of became my passion, that's like, okay, this is where I want to go with my life. So,
Wow.
From law school.
Right.
From law school. I want to go to law school. And it's like, you know what? I enjoy bouncing dudes' heads off the mat. Like that's kind of where I'm like wanting to go now. So because it's a crazy sport, right? I mean, besides like mixed martial arts, I'd say bull riding, like as far as sports goes, like those are the 2 like insane, like sports that you can take on personally. So like, just what was it about it that was just like, that just kind of got you?
I guess it was just the fact, especially back then. I mean, you're talking about, 2003, 2004, and I graduated college in 2007, so you're talking about long enough ago that if you were a good wrestler, you just dominated the sport.
Right.
Okay.
When Matt Hughes was on his long tear without throwing punches on the feet, and so it's just like, oh man, these guys are doing it, then this is going to be great, but it was a different world by the time I got out of college, because then there's so many wrestlers going into it,
Right.
I remember my first fight in the UFC, looking around, there was like 10 guys on the card that wrestled in college, Oh, wow. And I was like, 3 years ago when you watched the UFC, there was one guy on the card that wrestled in college, you know, and he's just wrecking everybody he fights, So, I mean, you look at Tito Ortiz made his run and became the champion. I don't think he ever started a day in college, And then it goes to the point where you got, two All-Americans fighting each other, So it was a big change pretty quick in the sport.
So you're extremely good at jiu-jitsu as well. So how did that all come into play? So I figured from the wrestling background, it was kind of a natural transition. But where did you get the passion and the ability to go into that? And what do you think made you do so well?
So one of the things that drove me nuts was like, you watch fights, and you watch these guys that are wrestling, good wrestlers, they're taking everybody down, slinging them around, and they get choked, and it seems like everybody's getting triangled, and I was like, I can't be that guy. So the first thing I did was find a place to train jiu-jitsu, and that's how I started. And it was really all just like, I'm training jiu-jitsu because I want to fight, And then a friend of mine who only wanted to do gi, he kept trying to get me to train with him in the gi. So I started doing that. I hated it at first, and then I just got more and more where I liked it more and more. And then I kind of became the jiu-jitsu guy. I was the wrestler that was triangling people from my back and stuff like that. So that changed, kind of the way I looked at myself. It's funny, like years later, somebody asked me like, okay, what's your background? I said jiu-jitsu. And I'm like, whoa, no, my background's wrestling. I don't know why I just said that.
Right.
And then I really, I thought, okay, I like jiu-jitsu. I do well at jiu-jitsu. And then my coach, when I was in Nashville, I was a purple belt. And he was like, there's a tournament in Ohio, in Columbus, that's invite only. You got invited. If you win, you get money, and stuff like that. It's 4 guys. It's a guy, one of the best brown belts in the world, and then 2, or a good black belt, and then a guy that wrestled for Ohio State. And so I was like, okay, yeah, I'll do it. So I had the guy from Ohio State first. I submitted him pretty fast. And then the brown belt guy, John Toth, he won. So I had him in the finals. Well, I beat him, and then we were under Lloyd Irvin at the time back. I don't know if you guys have been in the sport long enough to know that whole fiasco. But anyway, Lloyd was like, well, you just beat a guy who's one of the best brown belts in the world. You have to compete at Purple Belt Worlds, which is like 2 weeks later.
Oh.
So I went to Purple Belt Worlds, and John Toth won the brown belts, and I won purple belt. And so, not that, it's purple belt, not super prestigious or anything, but then that kind of got some recognition about jiu-jitsu. Yeah. And then ended up, when we went to California, they brought me out to be a part of the pro team, but also to be the head jiu-jitsu instructor there. Wow. When I was a brown belt. So I got my black belt out there, doing that. So that kind of just, then all of a sudden I was the head jiu-jitsu coach of not only a big gym, but also a fight team, so right. Then my life really became jiu-jitsu, and I really don't like getting hit much. So in fights, it's great to take people down and submit them. And I always said, I'm not going to have a jiu-jitsu gym. It's too much of a headache and all that. And then here we are years later. Right. That's what I do,
That's awesome. So actually, Palmer has a great question talking about getting hit.
Yeah. So kind of pairing off not wanting to get hit. So as a fighter, what kind of kick or punch that gets landed that's just like, man, like if I can come out of this fight and not get like kicked in the liver, or if I can without getting like this punch, like what's that punch for you?
Probably one of the worst things that people don't ever really realize is when you block kicks and if it hits your forearms really solid.
Okay.
And I'll say when I fought Rafael Lovato, I stepped in with a hook, and I think it was in the first round, and I threw it, and I felt like we were so close, but just naturally my hand was up, and he threw a head kick. I don't know how he got it in there because we were so close, but it chopped down on my forearm. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think he just broke my forearm. Yeah. And it ended up being all right. But then for weeks, I couldn't hardly train after the fight, And then I had the same thing happen. Kendall Grove threw a kick that hit me in the forearm, and I couldn't train for 2 weeks. And then another one, I fought Costello Vanstinas, who probably hits way harder than anybody I've ever fought. He kept kicking me in the forearm, and they kept saying on TV, like, oh man, those kicks are landing heavy. They thought he was hitting me in the body, but it was hitting my forearm. And I was I would rather him hit me in the body. I think I'm going to throw up if he kicks me in the forearm again. And to me, that hurts so bad.
I guess it kind of would make more sense, because if you get kicked in the body, it's going to obviously hurt a ton, but it's not that lasting effect of just your arms being wrecked.
Well, and I say that because I've never been really hit hard in the body in a fight. I've been hit hard enough in a fight that I didn't like that,
Sure.
But never enough that oh man, I might go down,
Right. Okay.
So I can think of 2 or 3 times in a fight that I've been hit in the body enough that I'm like, okay, I don't want that to happen again.
Yeah.
Right. But, obviously those shots that hit you and drop you, that's a different world,
Sure.
Makes sense.
Tyler would know. I've done that to him a couple times, so.
Every once in a while. I got you back with the calf kick.
Most certainly. That's why I don't like calf kicks. I think once the calf kicks really start to be prevalent, I think that changed a lot.
Oh yeah.
I think that changed a lot. And even with jiu-jitsu, I wasn't really privy on jiu-jitsu until, obviously I've always watched the UFC and whatnot, but I think when I finally took notice, it was the first Anderson Silva Chael Sonnen fight. Because you saw a wrestler just dominate Anderson Silva like no one had ever seen before. Mm-hmm. I mean, that fight was insane. Chael Sonnen just had him the entire fight. Took him down, beat him up, just wore him down. But then you had that situation where he took him down, he shot low, and Anderson was able just to throw that Hail Mary of a triangle. And it's that's jiu-jitsu. Mm-hmm. That's at the end of the day, that's what it is. You can be getting pummeled for 4.5 rounds, and the last minute, you still have a shot.
Yeah. It was probably a month after that. And I think I was in Boston fighting on UFC 118. And I was sitting cutting weight. And what's his name? Gray Maynard was fighting on that card. So he was cutting weight, but one of his corners was cutting weight. And it was a young guy, who was a wrestler. And we were talking about that fight. And I was like, yeah, man, I just don't understand why all these wrestlers don't want to do jiu-jitsu. And he was like, I mean, if your wrestling is good enough, it doesn't really matter. And I was like, wait, well, you're just talking about a loss here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, sure. Why not? Yeah. Yeah. People's mentality. It's so crazy how many wrestlers just I don't want to do jiu-jitsu. And I think the problem is you look at how many jiu-jitsu gyms are in Wilmington, most black belts, they can't handle a college wrestler. They're going to get mauled by them, So, I know there's a guy who's a good black belt in Nashville, and a friend of mine who wrestled for Nebraska, he went into that gym one time, and he went and just mauled the black belt, slinging him around because he's a good wrestler. And then they tried to sign him up after, and he's like, no, signing up here. I just wrecked everybody, you know? So, you know, it does take an elite level black belt to be able to handle that, you know? And so I get why so many guys, you get that false sense of security. You come out of college wrestling and you go and you roll with somebody who's an okay black belt and you submit them 5 times with shoulder pressure, you know, and you're like, nobody's going to submit me. And then you go against a good black belt and you get submitted over and over and over again, you know? So I think that's just one of those things that if you don't find the right gym, you can believe things that aren't true real fast.
Right.
It's kind of like, you know, so it's kind of like that false sense of, you know, a false insecurity. But what is it about wrestling you think that is so dominant? Because, you know, look at, you know, most recently in the UFC, Khabib, like just someone that was just buzzsawing through everybody. Didn't matter really what the discipline. What is it about wrestling though that breeds like that kind of success?
I mean, obviously it's the only sport that really focuses on like grinding into getting takedowns, right? Even like judo, people, you know, compare judo to wrestling, but judo is all about a throw. Like if I get your feet off the ground, I don't need to end up on top.
Right.
I can score points just by getting your feet off the ground. Then you land on top of me, you know? So wrestling's the only sport that really focuses on, in American wrestling more than anything. Even Greco, people talk, you know, people say Greco and freestyle because they don't know what it means, you know. Right. Even Greco-Roman wrestling, like if I throw you and I back arch and your feet go over our heads, you know, I can win the match with that throw and you can still land on top of me, you know. So it's not really as applicable as American wrestling for MMA. But the other thing is wrestling is just so much more physical, you know. In jiu-jitsu, you guys trained some, you said, so you know, what do people say right away? Oh, don't spaz, you know, don't do this, don't do that. In wrestling, it's like, kill that guy, you know? And I always tell people the difference between wrestling and jiu-jitsu is like, if you're trying something in jiu-jitsu and it's not working, like if I'm coaching you, I'm going to tell you to do something different, you know? In wrestling, I'm going to tell you to do it harder, you know? And that's just a different mentality and a different level of physicality that makes it really hard for people to handle a lot in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I agree a lot with that. I wrestled since I was in first grade. So definitely have the background in wrestling and everything too. And jiu-jitsu was a like perfect segue into fighting a little bit and stuff. And it's just that grind and the body pressure that there's nothing else that compares to it.
Yeah, absolutely. But then, you know, the thing is too with wrestling, like you can't do it forever because it's so hard on your body. So that's why jiu-jitsu is great. You can make that transition into still grappling, but it's not, you're not trying to put your shoulder in somebody's eye socket all the time, you know?
Jeez. Just getting grinded on. Just, oh, it's so uncomfortable. But it sucks. It sucks. To be hopeless on the ground against like just like an animal such as yourself would just be hopeless. Just completely hopeless.
You know, it's like trying to fight a fish in water. You know, if you don't know what you're doing there, what are you going to do? You know?
Yeah, just like pray, just like tap, pray, just something like in this.
I know you mentioned cutting weight too. So how is that process doing it professionally? Because like I did it in middle school, high school, like it's completely different ball game, I would assume.
Well, everybody has this mentality, and it's funny, even in wrestling, people think like, oh man, like when you get to college, there's somebody like tells you how to cut weight. There's not. You still cut weight like an idiot, you know? And then I cut weight the same way all the way. I was a pro for a while before I had somebody tell me the proper way to do it a long time ago. I didn't really listen to them. And as I've gotten older now, I've kind of learned how to do it, you know, do it the right way. But still, it's funny. You go to Bellator fights, you go to UFC fights, and people still cut weight completely wrong. Like what's one of the main things that people believe now because of the show, The Ultimate Fighter, this is probably my biggest pet peeve. I want to rip people out of the sauna when I see it, is people put on sauna suits and get in the sauna.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't make you sweat faster.
No.
You're just hotter and you're just more likely to die. The thing about the sauna is it's hot and it opens up your pores because it's dry, you know?
Right.
And then people get in there in a sauna suit and think they're doing something, you know? And another one that was just amazing that I saw, this is a professional athlete. Now, like Bellator and the UFC, they supply you with personal saunas, you know, so that way,
oh wow,
if I'm going to cut weight, you know, we don't have to worry about everybody fitting in the same sauna. And not my last fight, but when I fought for the world title against Masasi, they had all the personal saunas set up in the same room so we could see what everybody in my corner was doing. And this guy was, I don't know if you guys have ever seen a personal sauna, but it's got a little seat in there. You sit out, your head's out. Yep. This guy took the seat out so that he could sit down in the sauna. And the whole thing about the personal sauna is you can breathe cold air. So your body doesn't go into as big of a shock, and they were looking for him because it was time for weigh-ins, and they were like, is he in there? And I looked over and I was like, no. Like, do you see a head? And they were like, he gets down in it. And I was like, what? Why? And they went and like looked down in it. And then another official came and like looked down in it. And I was like, I've never seen somebody do that before. But everybody was talking about it the whole time. He was trying to get down in it. Of course, he didn't make weight because he didn't know to cut weight. Right. But
that's crazy.
Yeah.
So what was your kind of like, so when you're fighting 185, so what are you walking around like, like right now, like what do you don't have a fight on the books that I'm aware of. So like, what are you walking around at?
Between 200 and 205. I try to, if I deadlift heavy, then I'll shoot up to like 210,
Okay.
But I try not to do that just because it slows me down and that's just more weight I got to cut in the long run,
And so when get out of your fight camp, then what do what's like your ideal weight out of fight camp?
Like when I'm out, I would prefer to walk around like 200 to 205.
Okay.
When I'm in fight camp, a lot of people cut a lot more weight, but I try to walk around in the mid 90s. So I don't have a big cut,
okay. So 10 pounds,
and some people cut well and rehydrate well. I don't really. So, anything over, if I'm more than 14, 15 pounds over, then I'm going to have a hard time. But if I can be that 10, 11 range, then I'm going to have a pretty easy time.
Nice.
So so it's just, you're just straight sauna and like that'll like knock it, or?
So I water load all week. And then, that kind of puts you at a false number because you're a little higher than you really are. And then so now they've moved for the UFC and for Bellator. They originally moved weigh-ins to noon, which I thought was amazing because that way, I can sleep till 8 o'clock. I can get up. And I've got 3 hours to cut before I even got to think about anything being an issue. And I'm not cutting a ton of weight, so 3 hours is plenty of time, Then they moved it like 11 o'clock. Now it's sometimes it's 10 o'clock, sometimes it's 9 o'clock. That's tough, because now I got to cut weight the night before. So, I'll try to cut my water out the morning of the day before weigh-ins. So that way, I get time to get that out of my system. And then I'll cut like half my weight the night before, and then get up at like 6 o'clock and cut the half the next morning.
Okay.
How good's it feel to eat after that?
Everybody always thinks like, oh, what do you want to eat? Like you just want to drink.
Right.
That's all you really want.
That water is just like, boy, this water hits so good right now.
And it's such a strength. And it just shows you how bad it is on your body. You cut, you get super dry. I can't sweat. I can't get anything out. And then as soon as you start drinking water, your pores open up and you start sweating again. And it's like, okay, so this water was in me and my body was so shut down that I couldn't sweat. And now I take a couple of sips of water and I start sweating. It's so weird.
Yeah.
Do you think that, mixed martial arts will ever move into a point where they don't cut weight? Because it is so bad. Like, it's not good for you, right? Like, it's a lot of stress on your body. And I forgot one championship that's starting to do like are they fighting like at your weight?
Same day weigh-in.
Same day.
Yeah.
So like, do you think that we'll see like a Bellator move to something like that? Because the science kind of shows that like how bad the cutting is for you.
It'll be interesting to see because, number one, you got people just like the weigh-ins the day before. People show up to weigh-ins, take pictures and videos, stuff like that. So, you got to do away with that. And the other thing is it really doesn't matter what you do. I mean, wrestling, we weighed in an hour before a match and we cut weight, so.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that there may be more moves to try and do away with it, but you'll never do away with it because people are going to go, well, I don't care. I'll cut weight anyway, and then you're going to be more unhealthy. If you give me same day weigh-ins and I just say, well, screw it, I'm cutting weight anyway, then I'm more unhealthy than if I did cut more weight the day before and did it, so I don't really know that helps a whole lot.
Well, then you just brought up a really good point. The day of, or the day before, that's kind of like, another event, like the arenas can make their money and like all that stuff. So that kind of probably cuts into profit if you do away with that. Cause that's a huge marketing stick for a lot of companies, have Joe Rogan out there screaming and hollering and like everyone get riled up the day before. So
I think that, that's one of the big things is there's money in it. But I think the other thing is they've done a really good job of, when I was in the UFC, hands down, the worst experience of my entire life was how they ran weigh-ins. And they would say, okay, we have weigh-ins at 5 o'clock. Well, then we have to leave the hotel at 3:00. Mm-hmm. So now, okay, I got to be on weight by 3. And then you get to the event, you'd sit there for an hour, and then everybody would do physicals, and everybody's blood pressures, bottomed out.
Right.
Like, oh, well, we got to figure out why your blood pressure's low. Well, you put me out here, and I'm 15 pounds lighter than I walk around. I hadn't had anything to drink all day. And then you get done with your physical and they put you back there and you just sit there and they wait for the arena to fill up. And then you walk out there and weigh in at 5:45, Yeah. So it was one of those things where it was so dangerous because weight cutting is not good for you. But if I can cut weight and I can be on weight for 10 minutes and jump back up, that's really, my body can handle that.
Sure.
If you make me get on weight for 3 hours, I can't recover from that, So then they started moving weigh-ins up and they started doing real weigh-ins and mock weigh-ins, and now you're getting into a little healthier atmosphere, I think, and so now, you've got over 24 hours to rehydrate. I do not do well when I'm at weight. So I'm miserable. Yeah. It's like I'm on weight for 10 minutes, I'm never going to be that first guy on the scale. They do weigh-ins for 9 to 10. Right. I'm not going to be there at 9 a.m. I'm going to be there at 9:45 because I'm going to get to weight just in time to step on the scale and start drinking,
Yeah.
So, and there's been a lot of times my dad will call me after weigh-ins like, do you have a hard one? They said you made weight with 3 minutes to go. I was like, well, I wasn't planning on doing it earlier than that. But so that's kind of the, I think that it's getting better in that aspect, just going the other way, doing early weigh-ins.
Okay. That's cool to know. It's so wild that there's not, as prevalent as the sport is now, that it's not like an exact, like everyone does it differently. Some people, like you said, don't have a clue what they're doing. It's wild that it's still like that. It's still kind of like the Wild West a little bit.
Probably one of the funniest things that was kind of eye-opening to us that, because, once you learn something and you do it for a couple of years, you forget people don't know it,
Right.
And so Joe Selecki was, I don't remember if it was his first fight in the UFC or his second or whatever. But anyway, we were at the event and they have a team that kind of, if you want their help, they can kind of guide you, and they do a really good job of getting liquids together for you after weigh-ins. And so they asked Joe, do you have a plan for your weight cut? He was like, well, yeah, I've been water loading since, weigh-ins were on Friday, so he's probably been water loading since Sunday. Mm-hmm. And so I started water loading Sunday. I've got 2 gallons to go, or I'm drinking 2 gallons today. I'll do a gallon on Thursday. And then, I should be within this weight and I'll cut this. And the guy was like, oh, wow, you're ahead of the game on this. I'm like, you're talking about all these guys have been professional fighters for years and they don't know this, but there's still people. I know people that still start cutting on Tuesday for a Friday weigh-ins, I'm like, what do you say to that? I'm like, now we have the internet. You can learn how to cut weight.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. The ignorance is really on you.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And especially being around all of the professional fighters that you are at that level, copy someone at the very least. It's like, this guy does it pretty well.
Yeah. And that's the thing, and at least in college, it's so hard because even in high school, you're wrestling 2-day tournaments. There is no way to prep for a weight cut. You got to cut weight. You got to make it today. We wrestle, and then you won your last match. Now you got to go cut weight again because you got to weigh in the morning. And there's no way around that. But there's no question. You're not going to pop up with a weigh-in that I don't know about. We're pros. It's in college they might say, hey, we just added a match. I know this is probably the worst day and a half of my life. It was, I was a freshman. I thought by the time I was a senior in high school, I'd be more mature about keeping my weight down. I was a senior in college before I felt that way, but I was a freshman in college and it was right before Christmas break. And we didn't have any other matches because we were going into our finals week. So we couldn't wrestle that week. Then we were going to be out until Christmas. So I had 2.5 or 3 weeks to eat whatever I wanted. So I was just seeing how much weight I could gain. And I was wrestling 165 and we finished practice and walked in and got on the scale after practice and I was 180.5 and I went to dinner. And so I ate as much as I could at dinner. So I have no idea what I weighed after dinner, but it was well over 180. Yeah. And me and my buddy, who's a freshman too, we go walking into the weight room for our night practice, and there's a lift and run, but it's Christmas is coming up. We're going to breeze through this. And coach goes, hey guys, we just set up Missouri Valley wants to do a freshman only dual match. This was Tuesday night. He's like on Thursday. So we'll be wrestling on Thursday. If you guys need to, start cutting weight or anything, head back to your dorms, grab your weight cutting gear and start. And I was like, Oh
Wow.
my gosh. Like I'm too full to run or do anything. And I've got well over 15 pounds to cut in less than 2 days. So that was, 9 o'clock on a Thursday night, on Tuesday night, we had to make weight like 5 on Thursday,
So let me start by, pressing my fingers down my throat and getting up all the apple pie and turkey I just like devoured.
Yeah. So, but so like when you're in college, like stuff in high school, stuff can spring up where you got to make weight. But like
Right.
once you're a pro, like there's no like, hey, you got to make weight tomorrow. We should be able to plan it out pretty well.
Yeah.
And, you see all these guys as they get older in their career, like all of a sudden they don't make weight anymore. Their body can't do it. So that really worries me. Like one day I'm going to have that day that my body doesn't cut weight like it did before. So I try to plan for that. I try to be ahead of schedule all the time. And it's just amazing how many guys don't do that,
Yeah. You've had a pretty long career fighting right now anyway. Do you think about kind of the end like near, or are you still gung-ho and ready to keep on pressing just as hard?
I'm still driven. I still train hard, and especially I train with so many guys that are driven all the time that I train with them, but yeah, I'm not going to be in the sport another 5 years. I'm not going to be that guy that's fighting at 42, or anything like that. I made my run, I got my shot at Masasi. I lost. And, and then I tried to fight my way back by fighting another top contender. I lost a decision to him. So now it's more just kind of finishing out my career, it's not less of a drive or anything like that, but it's just, I've done, what I could do. And now it's more for my family and then kind of just cementing my career,
Yeah. So you're still obviously extremely young too. So what do you see after the fighting career?
I sell real estate right now. I'm not, I'm not putting as much time in as I probably should because I have so many training sessions and stuff like that, and I have my gym and I know there's things I could do at the gym that would probably make it more successful, but I don't have that kind of time, and when I've got a fight coming up, I spend half my week in Charlotte, training there and stuff like that. So when that's done, I'll be able to put a lot more time into those two careers.
Nice.
I had one before we entered the outro fighting phase. You've cut weight. You're all looking good. I'm back on that train. So like, what's it like you're walking out to fight some dude in a cage and there's the lights?
The worst.
Like I've, obviously never been in that situation, but like, I just can't, I'm a nervous dude, like as is, like I get kind of like, nervous, your stomach kind of gets in knots. Like it has to just be, I don't even know. Like, what's it like? Walk us through like that feeling and the emotions of it all.
I would say now it's better, not because I'm less nervous or it doesn't get better. People are like, it's better. No, it doesn't. It's always terrible. That's somebody that hasn't done it long enough, because if you care, you're going to hate every minute of the lead up, but the guys that corner me, and I'm at a point where I'm not trying to have somebody there to tell me, okay, what do I do on the ground? What do I do here? Like I've got my head coach there, Jeff Jimmo, who is going to help me a lot. Right. But then other than that, it's one of my training partners who's one of my best friends, Corey Crumpler, who, he's going to keep me calm in the back. Yeah. And then another one of my best friends that I trained with for years in Nashville, Chris Barnheiser. He wrestled for Indiana, so he knows what it's like, so it's a lot of, we're in the back like, oh, this sucks, doesn't it? And joking around about stuff like that. And how my buddy Corey, his thing that he always goes to is, okay, we got, because when you're on TV, there is no question of what time are we going to walk. Like, you have your schedule. Right. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter if this fight ends in a decision or a knockout in the first round, we walk at this time. So we always know. So he's like, okay, well, we got an hour and 15 minutes, still plenty of time for a natural disaster. And so when I was fighting Chidi and Jaquani, who that guy's on a tear in the UFC right now, we were getting ready to fight him. And, you're having that feeling of, God, this is terrible. He's so fast. And that's what my friend, Corey kept saying is like, you're going to beat this guy. You're going to submit him. It's just, how bad is your leg going to hurt by the time you submit him? Because he has such good leg kicks. And I was like, okay, I can take that, And we was in Oklahoma and there was a really bad tornado. And we're in the largest casino in the world. Largest casino in the world is in Oklahoma, by the way, in the middle of nowhere.
Interesting.
So we're in the largest casino in the world in a very, a large arena, and the weather's so bad outside, you can hear the hail hitting the top of the casino. And so that's how bad the weather was. So I'm like, we can't fight. We're the main event. So I'm like, this casino's going to be torn up by the time to fight. We're not going to fight. This tornado's going to hit us. Well, that's great. We don't have to fight tonight, And then, of course, the weather goes away. And so then, okay, now we got to fight. This sucks. And we start to walk, and they're like, all right, you're ready to go. And then the guy told me to walk, and then a commercial started. So I'm like in the edge of the arena, and he's like, oh, my bad. We're on a commercial break.
Oh,
and
that sucks.
So we're having to just stand there, and, people are leaning over, screaming at us and stuff like that. You got people positive, people negative or whatever. But just standing there like, well, okay, it's freezing cold, and it's always cold in the arenas. And we're just like watching the big screen, seeing what the commercials are, and then they finally pop back up and like, all right, walk. Just terrible,
Great.
Yeah.
So when does that feeling kind of like, is it when the cage is shut, the announcer says his spiel, and then it's like, okay, and does it kind of subside then?
I guess when your hand gets raised. No, it's kind of always the same thing every fight. You're like, either you're thinking, okay, this guy hits like a truck. This is going to be terrible. Or you think, okay, I can, go back and forth. This guy's not going to hit that hard. And the first time they hit you, I say hit you, like it might be the head, might be the shoulder, but like somebody's going to throw a punch, it's going to hit something.
Right.
Sometimes it hits your hands. And either you kind of get, like I just fought, oh my gosh, he's the Bellator champ right now, Johnny Eblin. And he's knocked everybody out. And the first time he hit me, I was like, oh, this guy doesn't hit that hard. He could never knock me out, Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, okay, well, yeah, we can stay on our feet as much as I want. I don't have to worry about that, And I mean, he's very good. He beat me, beat Masasi,
Yeah.
Then the fear of like, am I going to get knocked out's gone, Or then you have somebody, like I've had so many people I fought that I'm like, well, at least he doesn't hit hard. And they hit my hands the first time. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I felt like a baseball bat. So, but that kind of, then it goes away of like, okay, well, this is what I got to deal with now, And so that's probably when, the first time you like make contact, it's like, okay, well, no matter what, I got to deal with this. And going back to the Chitty fight, the first exchange there, my whole thing was like, am I going to look stupid? Is he going to be so much faster than me that I look stupid, And we had the first exchange, and we both like threw 3 punches and missed each other. And I was like, okay, we just both threw combos at each other. It looked pretty even, And then he jabbed me and hit me, and I reacted by the time his hand was back to his face. And I was like, oh man. So then I was like, I got to do something to get some respect here. And he threw a teep up the middle, and I hit it with my elbow. And I know it felt like it broke his foot. It's like, okay, well, now
all right, we're good.
I just even the playing grounds now, or even the stand up because he's hurting now. So,
oh, that's too funny.
I really appreciate that answer because, I always kind of thought that it was, every guy has like this, I'm the man. Like, like I'm the man, like I've got the confidence, like I'm just walking around, like the McGregor, billionaire
Right.
walk, like, just like being overly confident in yourself. But to know that there's like some legitimate fear in there, like it kind of makes it a lot more personable because it, like I said, you seem like it seems like this big machismo, just like I'm the guy and like no one's going to, I'm going to break this dude in half. But it's really like, man, this dude could like really like tear me up like real fast. And like, I don't know how this is going to play out, but I'm going to try to win, Mm-hmm. I guess that's more of an honest answer than I thought it was going to be.
yeah, I mean, I think pretty much everybody goes through that. And you've got your head cases that, like I know people that just like, doesn't matter who they fight. They're like, oh, he's terrible. I'll be fine. That's pretty good. But I mean, like, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The Warrior.
Yeah.
And, as I think as fighters, people are like, think you are going to hate fighting movies. And I don't like any other ones, but I love that movie. And not because of anything more than the crazy brother that Tom Hardy plays. Like you wrestled in Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. I know 10 guys like that were just stud wrestlers, but they act just like that.
Yeah.
And that's such a wrestler thing is that like his character in that movie, like every good like team I've been on in wrestling, there's at least one guy like that, and those guys, they don't get nervous. They don't think anybody can hurt them. They don't, they just go out there to wing it, and they're successful a lot of times, but other than that, most everybody has that like, oh man, what's going to happen? Especially when you're doing it for a career. Cause like, what happens if I lose and they cut me and now I don't get a paycheck and I got to find a way to make a living,
Yeah. By the way, side note, Tom Hardy killed it in that role. And he's still killing it in jiu-jitsu. Like, what a better, like, kind of guy to have, like, rep jiu-jitsu right now to a lot of people that are probably scared to death to try it.
Right. Kind of staying back on the walkout part. Is there a point when you're walking out that everything just goes silent for you, or do you hear all of it all the time?
I think you hear everything, and it's kind of tough. It's nice when you're during COVID. It was really nice fighting in empty arenas, you know, because you can hear the TV commentators, you know, there's nobody screaming, you know, I mean, gosh, you take somebody down and you don't submit them in 15 seconds. There's somebody screaming, stand them up, you know? And like I had the first round with Masasi. I had him against the cage and I kneed him in the head and people were screaming, stand him up. I'm like, oh, first of all, he's got to his feet for a second. I need him in the head. Like, this is like, we're working right now, you know, like this, it's not like we're just sitting here, you know? So it's, you know, just when that element is always going to be there. And it was nice during COVID when it wasn't there.
Right. I've heard a lot of people say that too. They're like, it's just nice being in there, you, the other guy, and your coaches.
Yeah. And
just kind of having the mixed martial arts, the arts part being the main focus of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, it's cool for it to be quiet enough. Like I can hear the commentators talking, you know, that was a different type thing. That was pretty neat.
Oh, certainly.
I know watching the UFC a couple times during those same type of things where they'd be like, oh, clearly they heard what we said, because they would change up what they were doing when their coaches weren't yelling the same thing.
Yeah. One of the best things, one of the fights during COVID, I was fighting, oh man, I can't think of anybody's name right now.
I'm always like that. It's okay.
Yeah, I was fighting Capel, and he was just like, he's a very slippery guy. You know, people, like I'm sure you've seen in wrestling, like, people have different sweat. There's some people that sweat like it feels like oil and you can't grab them. And he was that kind of guy. So I spent the whole second round just in mount with an arm triangle, because in the first round, he like pushed me from mount and I just slipped right off of him. And so I was like, I'm holding this guy a little tighter. And then in the third round, I had him back in mount with an arm triangle. And I was like, almost had him submitted. Like it was very close. Like felt like, okay, I'm going to submit him before this fight's over. And John McCarthy was, you know, like over there, Salter's just not, you know, he's not looking to finish. And if he wants to fight for a title, he's got to be a finisher. Now, granted, all my wins, I've had one win that wasn't a finish, you know, in my career.
Right.
So all my wins are finishes. And he's talking about how I'm not a finisher. And then I submitted him. Like right after that. And then the next day we're getting on the plane and McCarthy's getting on the plane with us. And he was like, so just out of curiosity, why wouldn't you, you know, get out to side control so you could finish that choke? And I was like, I finished it from mount. So, that's how I do it.
Oh, it's too funny.
But I mean, you know, and it's funny because they've got to have something to say. You know?
Right.
So they're always just, you know, that's not a negative him. I love John McCarthy.
Right.
And I think he's really good at what he does. And he knows his stuff, but everybody's got to have,
right. You got to have your color commentary.
Exactly.
You got to have something.
You got to have some kind of color to put in there. So,
especially if it's just like a one-sided beat down, like you have to kind of be like, well, you got to give the other person some kind of a saving grace, or like, this is just, you know, because then you come off as biased and everyone always blows up the biased commentators and whatnot. So you have to kind of be like, well, he might be getting his ass kicked, but he's dangerous if he can, you know, escape from this or that.
Well, I promised both of you I'd get you out pretty quick today, so we're already at about 50 minutes here. But I do have one last question for you, and that is, if you could tell your younger self one thing, what would it be?
Oh, man, be smarter and don't fight. You know, I don't know. I think when people say like they want to fight, I'm like, why? You know, but it's given me and my wife a great life. You know, we've traveled the world from it. You know, it's been a blessing for us. You know, it's been great. But I do always, you know, I know this doesn't really answer your question real well, but one thing I always try to tell young people, like, don't fight just because you think like, oh man, I want to go out there and look cool or something like that. Like,
right.
You need to be passionate, you know, and you need to have a reason that you want to do it, because you can get hurt awfully bad and it takes a long time to make money, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. There has to be a real life purpose behind it. And also to have the drive to do it too, you need that purpose, because you start doing those grinding wrestling practices and get tapped out a million times at your jiu-jitsu practice. Yeah. You're going to need something more than feeling cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Feeling cool doesn't really put any money in the bank, does it?
Right. Yeah, not typically. Yeah. So I said it was one last question, but it kind of leads into something else. Sorry. So you were going to school for law. Is that still something that you enjoy?
No, I never did end up, you know, going to law school. When I went to grad school, it was for MBA.
Oh,
so because by the time I found out I wasn't going to be wrestling my last year, it was too late to take the LSAT or anything like that, but I could still go take the GMAT and get in. So I went and took that and got into MBA school. But, you know, I have people a lot of times like, oh, why don't you go back and finish your degree, you know? And while I you know, value education, I don't really know what it would do for me at this point, you know?
Yeah. Exactly.
So that's something that I probably won't ever do.
Yeah. Well,
I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good. I don't have any other questions. That was awesome.
I know Palmer came ready with all of his questions, so I'm glad he got through them.
I'm good.
And thank you so much, John, for coming on.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, definitely. And thank you, Palmer, for sitting in while Chris is away.
Yeah, Chris, if you just want to take a couple weeks vacation, man, no rush. I can sit here and warm the chair for you.
Perfect. Sounds good. Thank you, everyone, again. And thanks, everyone, for listening. Make sure to share with a friend and rate and review. Cheers.
Cheers.